Joining me now from our Tel Aviv studio to discuss the Democratic Convention is Yael Pətיר, Israel Director of J Street. Yael, welcome.
Good afternoon, Elon.
It's not looking good for the Democrats, is it?
Well, I mean, I'm sure the Democrats have hoped to open their convention more quietly than the stories around mainly the email accounts as well as the results.
Both email scandals now.
But it seemed that by the end of the evening they've pulled through.
All the same, we have Trump pulling ahead of Hillary Clinton in several polls.
It's true, although I've just seen a latest poll from this morning that showed that she's leading. So I think the polls are very unstable, and maybe we can't predict much at this moment from the polls. We'll have to see what happens, A, after this convention, and B, once we have the, televised...
Okay, well, let's move over to the local angle of this story. Between Trump and Clinton, which candidate of the two can we expect to be the more pro-Israel, so to speak?
Well, the answer is, first of all, how do you define pro-Israel? My definition of pro-Israel is somebody that stands side by side with Israel, that takes care of its, backs the security aid and takes care of Israel being a Jewish and democratic state for future generations. That means reaching a Palestinian-Israeli peace agreement and separating into two states. In that sense, Clinton is much more a pro-Israel candidate than Donald Trump, who talks about perhaps stopping aid, who wants to have less responsibilities in terms of the U.S. being a security power in the world. And I'm I feel less safe having him as president.
Trump has certainly made some comments that have concerned people in terms of his commitment to NATO and military aid, but the Republicans just adopted a new platform saying they oppose any measures intended to impose an agreement or dictate borders or other terms on Israel. What could possibly be more pro-Israel than giving us unqualified support?
Right. The Republicans basically, stepped back of bipartisan consensus that has been around for almost 40 years that says that protecting Israeli interests for the long terms has to do with support for a two-state solution. The first president that actually supported publicly the establishment of a Palestinian state was a Republican president. So the Republicans are stepping back in an effort probably to please a very small minority of Israeli supporters that are more in line with...
But all the same, if the Republican Party says that it interprets pro-Israel in terms of giving Israel any support it wants, and you say that Hillary Clinton would be the pro-Israel candidate because she would push Israel towards a two-state solution, are you saying you see Clinton as the pro-Israel candidate because she would push our government to do something that's in its own best interest, even if it wouldn't do so otherwise?
It's... more or less, yes. Although I do see, American presidents working side by side with Israel to promote Israeli interests and American interests. So it's never really, against what Israeli interests are. And our current prime minister did say several times that he's supportive of the two-state solution. So I don't see it as something which is against, Israeli government or interests.
Okay, well, looking at trends within the Democratic Party, Senator Sanders recently called himself, and I quote, 100% pro-Israel in the sense of Israel's right to exist. Is that enough to qualify as pro-Israel for a politician in J Street's mind?
Well, I think you're asking a good question. I think we're at a moment where there is a question mark around what does it mean to be pro-Israel. I think the most important thing is to protect Israel and to support Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. That future runs through a peace agreement with the Palestinians that would ensure both that Israel will stay a democracy and will have a Jewish majority. Whether what Sanders says is enough, I believe so, because
that it's enough to say pro-Israel is just Israel's right to supporting Israel's right to exist. That's all pro-Israel means?
Supporting Israel's rights to exist in the way Israel is defined.
Okay, Yael, thank you very much.
Thank you.